of all gurus and disciples in his line, with the focus on our Gaudiya Vaishnava Sampradaya. So just like yesterday, it's a narrative. I tell a story from a script, but then you're going to think of questions. So either make a mental note or a digital note or a physical note, so that we can have a lively Q&A, which is really where all the churning happens. Okay. All right, Damayanti, just read the slide.
Srila Prabhupada, our founder Acharya. Lesson 2, the founder Acharya principle.
Good. Okay.
Although Srila Madhvacharya accepted Diksha and Sannyas from one Achyuta Preksha Swami, since Madhva received the most Shiksha from Srila Vyasadeva, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur listed Madhva as Vyasa's disciple in the Brahma Madhva Gaudiya Sampradaya. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta called his list the Bhagavata Parampara, a line of Bhagavata instructors.
It's a Siksha line. Following Srila Bhaktisiddhanta, in his purport to Srimad Bhagavatam 1.2.18, Srila Prabhupada writes, quote, "There are two types of Bhagavats, namely the book Bhagavat and the devotee Bhagavat," unquote. And in his commentary to Srimad Bhagavatam 10.2.31, Prabhupada highlights that devotee Bhagavat, or Acharya, whose pure example embodies the book. So here's what Prabhupada says in 10.2.31 purport. Quote, "The Acharya Sampradaya is strictly bona fide." Notice, Acharya Sampradaya, a sampradaya of teachers by example. Quote, "The Acharya Sampradaya is strictly bona fide. Therefore, one must accept the Acharya Sampradaya. Otherwise, one's endeavor will be futile." Unquote. As we'll see in this lesson, it is from the Acharya Sampradaya culture, a culture of exemplars, that the founder Acharya principle emerges in our Gaudiya Vaishnava line. What follows are that principle's seeds. So this is really a history lesson of the evolution of the concept of founder Acharya. And it starts right after Mahaprabhu left. Okay, here we go.
An organizational seed.
And
Circa
means about. That's Latin.
Circa 1545, Lord Chaitanya's chief disciples, the 6 Goswamis of Vrindavan, founded the Vishwa Vaishnava Raj Sabha, which Srila Bhaktisiddhanta later identified as the gathering of devotees who worship the king of all Vaishnavas in the world, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu.
This is the first name of the Hare Krishna movement in the line of Mahaprabhu, the Vishwa Vaishnava Raj Sabha. Okay. Let's see. As the Sabha's most prolific writer and philosopher, Srila Jiva Goswami also emerged as the group's most skillful organizer. For example, he founded Vrindavan's famous Radha Damodar temple, where he established a library of all the Goswamis' works. Sri Jiva had those works copied and then dispatched his 3 best students, Srinivas, Narottam, and Shyamananda, to Bengal on the first Gaudiya Vaishnava book distribution party. The Goswamis Sabha, dedicated to articulating, preserving, and distributing the Lord's teachings, planted the founder Acharya principle's organizational seed. So think of that phrase, founder Acharya. There's an organizational word, founder, somebody who found something. And there's a spiritual word, Acharya, somebody who teaches by example. So it's a hybrid of not only Sanskrit and English, but material and spiritual. Okay, that's the first seed that was planted Right, Mahaprabhu disappeared what year? Do you know? 1534. So just within a dozen years or so after Mahaprabhu left, there's something organized to perpetuate what Mahaprabhu taught, organized by his chief disciple, the six Goswamis. And now, and look, by the grace of Prabhu, I forgot your name again. Amala Prabhu. You notice a new slide here? Yes. I used to have a slide that Amala said, that's not Rupa Goswami, that's Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur. And I went on Google Images, and you were right. So we've been improved. This is how my seminars improve, little refinements, you know. I had another picture. So there's Sri Rupa. And now, yes. Okay, Damayanti.
A philosophical seed. In 1552, Srila Rupa Goswami's Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu identified the fourth principle of devotional service as Sadhu Vartmanu Vartanam, which Srila Prabhupada later translated in the Nectar of Devotion as following in the footsteps of the great acharyas, teachers, under the direction of the spiritual master.
Right, okay. And on page Roman numeral 21 of the NOD's introduction, Srila Prabhupada writes, in our mental activities, we should always try to think of Krishna and try to plan how to please him, following in the footsteps of the great acharyas and the personal spiritual master. So there is a qualitative difference between the great acharyas and the regular gurus, our personal Shiksha and Diksha gurus. So that's a philosophical point that Sri Rupa made clear in his Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. In lesson 1, we learned that, quote, initiating and instructing spiritual masters are equal and identical manifestations of Krishna, although they have different dealings, quote, unquote. In ISKCON, for example, initiating and instructing spiritual masters may deal with their disciples differently, as parents and relatives do. As a child may see his parents and relatives as everything at first, then with their help matures to see them in perspective, so a disciple may initially see his initiating and instructing spiritual masters as everything, then with their guidance matures to appreciate them in relation to the great acharyas. To help us understand this philosophical seed of the founder acharya principle, we will now hear how the Acharya Sampradaya culture, the line of prominent Shiksha exemplars who make up our disciplic succession, inspired one famous disciple to beg his great guru to bring him closer to their foundational acharya. So the next slide is called A Cultural Seed, and it's all built around a story.
A cultural seed.
So on the left is supposed to be a depiction of Narottam Das Thakur. In the center is Srila Rupa Goswami, and there's Srimati Radharani in the distance. That's a whole pastime there. And then on the right is Lokanath Goswami, who was Narottam's Diksha Guru, but not without some drama. There was a big drama, if you know the pastime. Before the Gaudiya Vaishnava saint, Srila Narottam Das Thakur, was born, Lord Chaitanya told Lokanath Goswami, quote, within a short time, a prince named Narottam will become your disciple. He will be a gifted devotee, full of love and devotion, and empowered to save the fallen conditioned souls from hellish life. His enchanting, beautiful kirtan will melt even wood or stone. That's from the Narottam Vilas. After the Lord left this world, however, Sri Lokanath was so distraught that he withdrew from public view and vowed never to accept disciples. Nevertheless, later in Vrindavan, when Sri Jiva noticed that Narottam was drawn to the saintly Lokanath, Sri Jiva told Narottam to approach Lokanath for initiation. And everybody knew Lokanath wasn't initiating. But still, Sri Jiva said, no, your heart has been given to Lokanath, so approach him. But as ardently as Narottam approached Lokanath, just as adamantly Lokanath refused. Resolved nonetheless, Narottam, the son of a king, vowed to become Lokanath's menial servant and took to cleansing the area where the saint performed his early morning ablutions. So absorbed was Lokanath in his solitary Krishna bhajan that he scarcely noticed someone was daily cleansing his ablution area. Finally, after an entire year had passed, Lokanath decided to find out who was so conscientiously cleaning up after him. The next morning, he came earlier than usual and hid behind a tree. When Narottam approached, Lokanath saw who it was. "Narottam, it's you!" His identity exposed, Narottam fell at the saint's feet and begged to be accepted as his disciple. Lokanath refused at first, then later relented, remembering Mahaprabhu's prediction and conquered by the pure devotion of saintly Narottam. Now, although Srila Narottam Das Thakur became the only initiated of Srila Lokanath Goswami, in Song 17, verse 4 of his famous song collection, Prarthana, Narottam longs for Lokanath to bring him to their ultimate shelter in the disciplic succession, Srila Rupa Goswami. Yes, he's the chief. He's the chief of the Goswami. He's the leader. So, okay, so can you sing the Bengali? Any Bengalis in the house?
Prabhu Lokanath kabe sangale na jabe Shirupe pada patme mora samarti.
All right, Damayanti, you read the translation. Thank you.
When will my Lord and Master, Lokanath Goswami, take me with him and place me at the lotus feet of Srila Rupa Goswami?
When will my Prabhu Lokanath, when will my Lord and Master take me with him and place me at the lotus feet of Srila Rupa Goswami? In his commentary to Sri Chaitanya Chaitamrita Adi Lila 5.203, Prabhupada writes, quote, Srila Rupa Goswami is described as the Bhakti Rasacharya. Founder Acharya was not there yet because English wasn't even in there yet, for one thing. So he was called the Bhakti, but it's the same thing. The Bhakti Rasacharya, or one who knows the essence of devotional service. His famous book, Prabhupada says, Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, is the science of devotional service. And by reading this book, one can understand the meaning of devotional service. So he was called the chief. He wasn't the oldest. The oldest was Sanatana. He wasn't the most famous for being renounced like Raghunath Das or the others. But he was, as soon as he published Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, everybody went, whoa, okay. You're the leader, you're the chief, because you're the most expert at relishing the mellows of pure devotional service. As, quote, the chief of the six Goswamis, Srila Rupa Goswami was Narottam and Lokanath's Bhakti Rasacharya, the master most expert at relishing the moods of pure devotional service to Lord Krishna. And as Narottam's Diksha Guru, Sri Lokanath had the pleasure and privilege of bringing his disciple closer to Sri Rupa, the leader of the six Goswamis Sabha and the foundational spiritual master of all the Gaudiya Vaishnavas. So it wasn't that Lokanath was jealous of Rupa Goswami. No, he knew it was his privilege and it was his duty to bring his disciple, Narottam, to Rupa, as Narottam had begged him to do. So they both knew that. Although, quote, Rasacharya may sound similar to, quote, Founderacharya, by Lord Chaitanya's inscrutable, it means inconceivable will, the organizational, philosophical, and cultural seeds sown early for Founderacharya, just within 15 years after, 15 years after the Sangha, the Vishwa Vaishnava Raj Sabha had started, all those three seeds were there: organizational, philosophical, and cultural. But those seeds would have to wait another 3 centuries within a crucible, a pressure cooker of disgrace. The whole sampradaya was disgraced by all these upasampradayas after Mahaprabhu disappeared within 100 years, before final seeds arrived to conclusively establish the founder Acharya principle. So now we're going to wait for the crowning seeds that really set the stage for the founder Acharya phrase to appear. And here we go. Let's see. Yeah. All right, let's read that.
Literary seeds.
Yeah, there's the Thakur. Looks like he's in his chief magistrate garb. He was a high court judge employed by the Britishers. In the late 19th century, the great Gaudiya Vaishnava Acharya Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur identified and exposed more than a dozen counterfeit Gaudiya Vaishnava groups, who after Lord Chaitanya's departure so disgraced Gaudiya Vaishnavism that most educated and cultured persons shunned and dismissed the cult. It was turned into a cult. Not only did Srila Bhaktivinoda restore Mahaprabhu's original teachings, as well as the glories of the Gaudiya Vaishnavas, he also conceived of a mission to propagate Krishna consciousness globally, thus helping to fulfill a 16th century scriptural prophecy. Quote, "In every town and village, the chanting of my name will be heard." That famous Pritivita Yachayata Nagaradi Gram from the Chaitanya Bhagavat. Now, in the 1880s, when reports reached Srila Bhaktivinoda of a rising Western interest in classical Indian culture, the Thakur sent a copy of his Sanskrit work, Sri Krishna Sangita, to the American transcendentalist Ralph Waldo Emerson. Emerson gratefully acknowledged receiving the book, but confessed his inability to read Sanskrit. Yeah, Emerson said, "Oh, thank you so much. Do you have anything in English?" "I don't read Sanskrit." That inspired the Thakur to write a longer work presenting Lord Chaitanya's pastimes and teachings, including a 47-page introduction in English titled Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, His Life and Precepts. In 1896, the year of Srila Prabhupada's birth, Srila Bhaktivinoda sent that book to various Western universities, including McGill and Montreal. But it was a Bengali work by the Thakur, published in 1900 as the Harinama Chintamani. You've heard of that, huh?
Yes.
The touchstone of the holy name, that contained the crowning literary seeds for the founder Acharya principle. This must have been one of the last, if not the last book the Thakur wrote. He wrote it in Bengali, it published in 1900. In Harinama Chintamani, Srila Bhaktivinoda describes 3 kinds of great gurus in a disciplic tradition. The first is the Sampradayera Adi Guru, the primeval guru of the tradition. You know, people like Shri and Brahma and four Kumaras and Lord Shiva. Those are the primeval, prehistoric, you could say, gurus of the tradition, directly enlightened by the Lord himself, The second are the Shikshaguru Pratishtitaha, greatly revered preceptors who keep the tradition's teachings intact over long spans of time. But when the Thakur identified the third guru, he described him in a superlative. Okay?
However, the Adya Acharya, or original guru of a disciplic line, is appropriately worshipped and respected as the Guru Shiromani, the topmost crown jewel of the spiritual masters. His perfect philosophical conclusions are to be followed by all in his succession. Any contrary instructions will not be accepted.
Right. The stage was set for the founder Acharya seeds to bear fruit. The seeds bear fruit. In the 1880s, while envisioning a worldwide Krishna consciousness movement, Srila Bhaktivinoda revived the Vaishnav Raj Sabha. He revived it and launched a Bengali spiritual journal, Sajjana Toshini, for the satisfaction of the devotees. And there it is. Rebranded as the Harmonist for the English. That was the English edition. Let's see. 4 decades later, Srila Bhaktivinoda's illustrious son, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, reimagined the Sabha as the Gaudiya mission. Okay, so Bhaktivinoda revived it in a small way, but then when Srila Bhaktisiddhanta actually manifested the organization, he created a mission to inaugurate a formal renaissance of the whole tradition, which Bhaktivinoda only dreamed of doing as the Gaudiya mission, and transformed his father's journal into the Harmonist, an English language periodical with Srila Bhaktisiddhanta's scholarly disciple, Professor Nishikant Sanyal, as his co-editor. Yeah, one of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta's disciples was Nishikant Sanyal, a history professor at this college. Time to coincide with the launch of the mission's brand new Calcutta headquarters. The October 1930 Harmonist carried the first of a 3-part series by Professor Sanyal about the Gaudiya Mat. It was in this article that the founder Acharya phrase, seeded for centuries, finally fructified. It finally appeared. And here's how that phrase appeared in the October 1930 edition of the Harmonist. You can see this edition is, what is it? Number 1, June 27th. It was an annual then, but then it became, I think, a monthly by 1930. So in the October 1930 issue, here's what Sanyal, the editor of the magazine, wrote. And it includes the phrase, founder Acharya. This is where you first see it.
The Gaudiya Mat is also identical with its founder Acharya. The associates, followers, and the abode of his divine grace are limbs of himself. None of them claim to be anything but a fully subordinate limb of this single individual. This unconditional, causeless, spontaneous submission to the head is found to be not only compatible with, but absolutely necessity for the fullest freedom of initiative of the subordinate limbs.
Srila Bhaktisiddhanta, he could write simply too, but he was famous for these rather long sentences. He was trying to out-intellectualize the Western intellectuals, and it worked. He had different meetings with famous Westerners, and they were blown away by his erudition. Because they came into these meetings with an idea that, their Western culture was superior. And that, for example, Shakespeare in the Bible was the last word in, philosophy and drama. But Bhaktisiddhanta showed them otherwise. Oh, no. Okay, so in other words, and Prabhupada would say the same thing, as he would say that ISKCON is my body, you are all the limbs of my body, And the BPT is my heart, similar thing. During the Gaudiya mission's finest hour, the first Vaishnav preaching expedition to Europe in the 1930s, Bhaktisiddhanta sent 3 disciples to Europe. The book Srila Bhaktisiddhanta's leading preachers took with them was Sri Krishna Chaitanya, written by Professor Nishikant Sanyal and edited by Srila Bhaktisiddhanta. The work was written with sufficient breadth, depth, and excellence to impress the intelligentsia of the West. In its front matter, the elaborate table of contents highlighted the intimate connection between the Adi Gurus, the primeval preceptors of the 4 Vaishnava Sampradayas, and the Sampradayas' 4 founder Acharyas, who revitalized their disciplic successions within recorded history. Here's how that translates visually. So all those words might be more understandable when you see this. So on the top row, you see the 4 primeval preceptors, right? Rudra or Shiva, 4 Kumaras, Chatusan, Lakshmi or Shri, and Brahma. So, and then in our Kali Yuga, right below each one of them, you see the founder acharyas who revitalized those ancient lines for the Kali Yuga, with, in parentheses below their names, the particular spin, or particular application of philosophy. Shuddha Dvaita, 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 Vishishta Dvaita, Dvaita. If you ever go to Udupi in South India, you see Madhva. It looks like he's flashing the peace sign. But actually, he's saying there are 2. There's Ishwar and Jiva. He's declared war on Mayavad. That's why the Madhvites like us, because they know that ISKCON's founder, Acharya Srila Prabhupada, he's also Nirvishesha Shunyavadi, right? He's there to kick out impersonalism and voidism. Okay, so how important are founder acharyas to all those who follow them? There's Ramanuja.
Founder acharyas provide the core identity and foundational relationship for everyone in their disciplic lines. Srila Ramanujacharya and Srila Madhva Acharya are outstanding examples of the preeminent position of the founder acharya in the Guru Parampara.
Okay. Yes. Yes. Okay. Where am I? Okay. Since the Gaudiya Mat was but an extension of the Brahma Madhva Gaudiya Sampradaya, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta knew many would consider him presumptuous if he personally announced himself as the Mat's founder acharya. He knew people would think, well, who does he think he is? He thinks he's a Madhva, a Ramanuja, etc. But for the written record, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta did allow himself to be referred to as the Gaudiya mission's founder acharya within the pages of the Harmonist, because he was the founder acharya of the Gaudiya mission. Okay. Now, in lesson 4 of this series, the next lesson, lesson 4, 2 lessons from now, we'll see why Srila Bhaktisiddhanta would later leave this world and his founder acharya title behind. He foresaw what would soon befall his own institution, as well as the one disciple who would be ready, willing, and able to revive the Gaudiya Sampradaya as the founder acharya of a fresh branch of Lord Chaitanya's mission, far, far away from Mother India. Okay. So again, Prabhus, before we hear your questions and comments, let's review the main learning outcomes for this second lesson, the founder acharya principle. Okay, Damayanti, here we go.
Lesson 2. The founder acharya principle, learning outcomes. By now, we should be able to Explain how our disciplic succession is a line of Bhagavata instructors.
Right, it's not a line of initiators and initiated. It's a line of Bhagavad instructors. It's a Shiksha line.
Identify the organizational seed of the founder Acharya principle. Identify the philosophical seed of the founder Acharya principle. Identify the cultural seed of the founder Acharya principle. Identify literary seeds of the founder Acharya principle. Recall how the founder Acharya phrase appeared in 1930s. Identify the foundational role of the founder Acharya in the Vaishnava Sampradayas.
Okay, and before I forget, I take your questions and comments, the transition to the next lesson, lesson 3, having looked at the origin, characteristics, and historical development of the founder Acharya principle, we are now ready to examine how our Srila Prabhupada emerged as the founder Acharya of a fresh branch of the Gaudiya Vaishnava Sampradaya, ISKCON. Jai. All right, so, Hare Krishna. Jai Shri Prabhupada. So, whoever's hand I see first. Who? No questions. That means you all agree. Jai Prabhu.
We see that Narottam Das Thakur was forced to take initiation. So why is initiation very necessary? What does it signify? Like besides that the Guru takes on the karma of the disciple.
Why did he take initiation?
Why is it necessary, the initiation?
For any, but not just Narottam, but
For
anybody.
anyone, yeah.
Yeah, well, we mentioned that actually in the last, Prabhupada mentions it. Remember in the first lesson? That was in there too. Because we were talking about Siksha and Diksha Gurus, and maybe somebody even asked that question. Then I put a quote in from Prabhupada. Here we go. Okay. So I said in the first lesson, of course, the potential to have many instructing gurus, because Kaviraj Goswami said I can have unlimited instructings, but you can only take initiation from one spiritual master. Of course, the potential to have many instructing gurus doesn't cancel the requirement to accept initiation from a singular guru. In his introduction to the Nectar of Devotion, Srila Prabhupada writes, and Prabhupada says this right in the introduction to NOD, quote, the connection with the spiritual master is called initiation. That's when we actually formally commit, right? From the date of initiation by the spiritual master, the connection between Krishna and a person cultivating Krishna consciousness is established. Without initiation by a bona fide spiritual master, the actual connection with Krishna consciousness is never performed. Initiation is no small thing. Like, are you initiated yet? Okay. So who has been initiated? Okay. So wasn't it a very profound day for you? Moment for you? It's a rite of passage. It's a samskar. Initiation. Yeah. And before the deities and the guru and the Vaishnavas and the sacred fire, one takes vows, promises that I will follow these principles, and I'm committing now. And sometimes when people would break their vows or go away, Prabhupada, he would approach them, and he would be very personal about it. He would say, you promised to be my disciple and follow my instructions. How could you break your promise? It was like, how could you do that? You know, a lady or a gentleman keeps his word. And if you don't keep your word, it's bad. It's really low class. So, of course, even before initiation, like I joined in July 70, and then I got initiated in July 71. So why was I offered initiation? Because local people who were, I was living at New Vrindavan, and they noticed that I was following the principles. I was chanting 16 rounds. I was serving in a cooperative mood. I wasn't simply a rebel and a complainer or whatever. And so after a year, Kirtanananda and Hayagriva said, Prabhu, you're ready to take initiation. Oh yeah, okay. So to take initiation, you have to be following, and it's like a marriage. It's like before you get married, there's an engagement, right? Prabhupada even compared this to initiation, to a marriage, to an engagement. So before you get married, engagement is a commitment. But there's still time, if it doesn't work, to break off the marriage, to break off it and say, "Oh, this isn't working," So there's certainly a connection. But then when you take initiation, you're actually, okay, I'm serious. I'm committing, right? And it's for me, it was a very stunning day, as I told you, take your beads and shaking the beads and all that. Yeah, like stunning. So, yeah, it's a step. In fact, Rupa Goswami, in his, I guess it's in Bhakti Rasamrita, Ado Shraddha Tatak Sadhu Tabhajana Kriya Tato Nishta Tata. It's a 9-step process. It's like in Alcoholics Anonymous, they have 12 steps. So Rupa Goswami has 9 steps to recovery. Ado Shraddha. It begins with some faith, like faith meaning preliminary attraction, like, what are these Hare Krishnas? What are they? It's interesting. It's interesting. Ado Shraddha, preliminary faith. Tatak Sadhu. And then the next step is you start associating with the devotees. And then Bhajana Kriya, that's when you actually commit. That's in that Bhajana Kriya stage, that's when you actually, initiation happens in that stage. So it's part of the 9-step process to recovery. Did you ask that question? Yeah. So is that all right?
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
I answered fully. Okay. And I did, before you guys raised your hand, I did see Ishan when he went, Jaya was, okay. Because I can still see, even though I'm old, I can still see over here when I'm looking at you. That's Krishna's.
Yes. So I was actually looking at the disciplic succession, and I saw also Lord Chaitanya mentioned in that. So I just wanted to talk about the role of Lord Chaitanya. Like, because does he come in the role of Guru, or does he come in the role of Krishna?
Yeah, does it mention Ishwar Puri there? In parentheses, right? Yeah.
And I have more questions, but...
So say it again, what's your question?
So my question is, Lord Chaitanya, he's present as Guru or as the Lord himself? And if he's present as the Lord himself, then why doesn't our lineage start with him rather than start with...
Yeah, he's the Lord himself, but Lord Chaitanya came in the mood of who?
A devotee.
A devotee.
Devotee.
So he's showing by example that even if you're God, or he did it when he was Krishna. Krishna and Balaram, they were in the ashram of Sandipani Muni. They also went to the Gurukula. And why does he do that? Because as he says in Gita, whatever action is performed by a great man, common men follow in his footsteps. Well, Krishna didn't have a guru, so why do I need a guru? But that's our disease, right? We're thinking we're Krishna. So Krishna, he sets the example, and Lord Chaitanya especially. He is God, but he's coming in the mood of a devotee. Yeah, and and he said, my spiritual master found me to be a great fool, fit only for chanting Hare Krishna. But that was his way of popularizing the chanting, right? Okay, so now we're on Q&A. And, all right, Nityanand, is that all right? Is that okay?
Yeah, that's good. I had more, but you can ask first.
Okay.
Prabhu, this thing might have discussed. I missed initial first class.
Is that mic on?
That's more for broadcasting.
Oh, okay. So my question is, you mentioned how important initiation is, like a formal initiation.
Yeah.
But I remember this past time where one of the disciples of Srila Prabhupada, he asked Prabhupada that we are distributing so many books and they are not getting initiated. How will they go back to Godhead? And I
Yeah.
remember Prabhupada mentioning that if they just read my books, they are initiated.
Yes, that's
What-
a pastime with Vaikuntanath, my late godbrother who passed away just last November or November before, in Tucson, at the Krishna home. That's now become Krishna House. We have a Krishna House because Krishna home didn't work. But we had one successful graduate of Krishna home. You know, he was surrounded by devotees chanting, and he took off. So yeah, he wrote I asked him about it personally. Well, he was still a little able. He had dementia, so he was getting less and less capable of talking. So this happened in Radha Damodar temple, because Vaikuntanath and his wife Sharadiya, whom we used to say Saradiya in the old days, they were there for Prabhupada's famous Nectar Devotion lecture series at the Radha Damodar temple from November 72, and it extended into 73 too, and other places. So Vaikuntanath wanted to ask Srila Prabhupada, he wanted to ask him, you know, we're distributing your books, Srila Prabhupada, and many people are getting the books, but then they don't necessarily have your association, and how are they going to go back to Godhead without you? Because he was the only guru we knew. So Prabhupada did make that comment. If they read my books, they're already initiated, is that what he said? Something like that, yeah. So initiated in the sense of shiksha, didn't mean diksha. Initiated in the sense of shiksha. He's our preeminent shiksha guru. That's the answer. He's the foundational spiritual master of all generations of devotees. So, but still, as Prabhupada wrote, as I quoted, one has to take initiation from a bona fide spiritual master. Did I tell you how my godbrother Upendra's wife, her name was Chitralekha? She's still with us, but Upendra's passed on. And they had some children, and then after the first, who was the first? Shantaya, a girl, Shantaya, yeah. So Chitralekha said to Srila Prabhupada, this is way back in 67 or 68 or whenever it was, not 67, but 69, yeah, probably 69. And she said, oh, Srila Prabhupada, I can't wait till Shantaya comes of age, then she can, take initiation from you. And Prabhupada said, oh no, she will have to get her own spiritual master. Meaning in Sampradaya from him, somebody, because Prabhupada knew that he wasn't going to be here forever in Vapu, so he was going to depend on us to carry on, to mature enough to become gurus in our own right. Again, not to imitate him, but to be regular gurus. So, yeah.
So, when we take initiation, we're, like you said, we're committing ourselves, and our goal is to serve Krishna, his devotees, and
Yes.
ultimately going back to Godhead. But in this past time with Vaikuntanath Prabhu,
Yes.
Prabhupada mentioned if they read my books, they're initiated, and they will go back to Godhead.
Well, initiated in the sense that they're taking shiksha from me, but they still have to go, and if you read his books, they're going to also read how they have to take initiation they have to take from a singular guru. They have to go through that process of committing to a singular guru. Just because Prabhupada, as the founder Acharya, is the foundational shiksha guru of all generations of devotees, that's a GBC resolution even, Doesn't mean that we don't have to go through the process. That's what you're saying is Ritvik. That's what the Ritviks say. Prabhupada's the only initiator. These other guys are bogus. So many fall downs. Blah blah blah. And it was created by imitation of Prabhupada. And there were consequences. There were horrendous things that happened to people who imitated Prabhupada, more or less, depending on the extent of the offense. But you have to go. This is the parampara system. We have to commit to somebody who can guide us face to face, right? And then the more we take from that, the more, when they disappear, usually, usually I'm trying to think. Yeah, sometimes the disciple is older than the guru, but almost always the disciples are younger than the guru, like we could have been Prabhupada's grandchildren, materially speaking. And so, he passed away in 77. So all of the Prabhupada disciples are orphans. No, not orphans, because he left behind so much Vani. He lives forever by his divine instructions, and the follower lives with him. So, is that right? Okay. Wait a minute. All right. Monil Prabhu or Sarthak, did you speak yet?
No.
Oh, okay, you didn't ask. Okay.
Okay. Prabhu, my question is based on, how when Narottam was inspired, or he was kind of, he was wanting to take initiation from Loknath.
Yeah.
And then Rupa Goswami, he identified that and he pushed him towards, Loknath Goswami. So how
Jiva
important...
Goswami did that. He said,
Jiva
you
Goswami,
take
okay.
initiation from Lokanath, because he was one of his prized pupils, and he knew he's attracted, he's given his heart to Lokanath. Yeah.
So my question is how important it is for us to take initiation from a spiritual master whom we've given our heart to.
Given our heart to. Well, we're going to look at that in lesson 7 more, deeper. But given our heart, we give our hearts to a lot of things, sentimentally. Or like to use the example of the young man and young woman again, everything seems nice in the beginning. It's kind of a honeymoon phase, right? But then, as you get to know each other, you might, notice things that, I don't like that. I don't like that. I don't like that. I don't like that. But when you really give your heart, you're committing, to a person who you see is actually, in the case of a spiritual master, is very competent and capable. And you trust this person, even if you don't like everything about the person, because we're different. We're all individuals. Only Krishna can perfectly relate to an infinite number of souls, but we're finite. We're jivas. So when we're confident that this person, number one, has sold his or her heart out to Srila Prabhupada, in this case, because we're still around, Prabhupada's direct disciples, so we're the initiators and the instructors by and large. This person is sold out to Srila Prabhupada. I know that this person is just going to enrich, enhance, and deepen my relationship with Srila Prabhupada. My core identity, my foundational relationship. Yes, let's do it. That's one thing. And then, the guru also, we're going to look at this in lesson 7, has to examine the prospective disciple. Is this a person I can really accept as my disciple? Are we going to click? Are we going to... just because you have a bona fide guru and a sincere candidate for initiation doesn't mean those two people are going to work as guru and disciple. Yeah, it takes time. you'll see in lesson 7, at least a year. We don't do that in ISKCON enough. It's too quick a lot. It's sentimental. It's guru groupie stuff. And therefore, problems. Oh, I don't like this guru, or the guru's thinking, why did I initiate that person? My God, this isn't going to work. Okay, therefore there has to be a very thorough, over time, everything is revealed in time, it takes time. Yeah. Now I forgot your question. What was your question?
How important it is to take initiation from someone who,
Yeah,
yeah,
that
whom
takes
you are
time.
inclined towards. Yes.
That's the short answer. It takes time. We'll look at that more in lesson 7. Okay, Sartak Prabhu.
I remembered yesterday you were sharing, today you shared that some gurus want to imitate Prabhupada, and yesterday you were sharing that there was a disciple of, you shared the name, His Holiness Jayapataka Goswami Maharaj. There were 2 disciples who were discussing,
Oh, yeah.
who were sharing with you that, we want to have Vyas Puja greater than
No, they were sharing with
people who want to have
and
Vyas Puja greater than
Prabhupada.
Prabhupada, yes. Yeah, so some of us may not be familiar with His Holiness Jayapataka Swami Maharaj.
Uh-huh.
So they might think that he is the one, who is instructing them like that, or he has that
not
move.
at all. Not at all. He's a big founder Acharya promoter. You ought to read the Vyasa Puja offering. It's in the database from 1989 or 88. Wow. He's the one that supplied me that translation for the founder Acharya verse from Harinama Chintamani. Whew! Big. It became a real key point in this lesson. No, it was coming from guru groupie disciples who were thinking that Jayapataka Maharaj is even greater than Prabhupada because he initiated more disciples. By then it was around 30,000 disciples. It's up to like close to 80 now. Prabhupada even said in a letter to Jayapataka Maharaj that you will initiate 50,000 disciples. Because he has that capacity. Others like Kalakanta Prabhu has about 20 disciples, 25 or 25, yeah. That's more local. That's, anyway. Yeah, no, it wasn't coming from Jayapataka Maharaj. Thank you for letting me clarify that. And the people complaining about it were mature disciples of Jayapataka who knew that Jayapataka Maharaj wouldn't want that. A Vyas Puja ceremony greater than his, than Prabhupada's. Yes, okay, Manaji.
I asked this question when I saw this presentation in Burlington.
Yeah.
But I guess it just reminded me of something more that I want to add, and maybe I just want everyone to hear that answer.
Mm-hmm.
So I was always curious, why does guru groupism start? Is that just because people don't have connection with Srila Prabhupada? Is that because they have some sort of conditioning where, my thing is the best, my guru is the best? How does it start? Because one person who was, whom I felt was doing this guru groupism mentioned that if my guru is taking my sins, how can then my Diksha Guru and Shiksha Guru can be same? If my Diksha Guru is taking my sins, how can my Shiksha Guru and Diksha Guru be same?
We discussed this yesterday too, about who takes the sins and who takes the sins. Do you remember? Krishna! Aham tvang sarva papebhyo. I will deliver you from all pap, from all sins. But how does he do it? He does it through the whole parampara. Yeah, he does it through the whole parampara. So we take initiation, we make that connection with Krishna through our spiritual master, and then he passes everything up to Krishna. But because he's accepting a disciple, he has to accept some, consequence of taking, so he does accept. And I told you how Prabhupada said, that's why I get sick. Here's one. Listen to this. 1974, August. Prabhupada's in Vrindavan. He's getting really sick, gravely ill. And, he's so sick. I think he had malaria. Yeah. And it was a real virulent strain of malaria. And so he was in Vrindavan, and he was so sick. Therefore, it went out from Prabhupada or maybe the GBC, that everybody all around the world, this is 74 August, we should do a 24-hour kirtan to pray for Prabhupada's health. And this hadn't happened since Prabhupada himself requested that the devotees do this after he had the third heart attack in 26 Second Avenue in 1967. That's when he gave us the Nrsimha prayers to pray to Lord Nrsimhadev. Please, Lord, let my master, our master has not finished his work. Prabhupada said, pray like this. Please let him stay so he can continue his work. So in 74, that was 7 years later, Prabhupada got gravely ill, and the word went out, and I remember we had 24-hour kirtan. I was in Gainesville before there was any Krishna house. This was Depot Avenue, Amarendra was the president, and we had 24-hour kirtan going on, and it was intense. And then finally, the fever broke, and Prabhupada started to get a little better, and then Prabhupada said something super heavy. He said, the reason I got so ill, deathly ill, gravely ill, was that 80% of the leaders aren't following the principles. And he was getting the consequence for that. He was directly affected by that. Whoa! So what we do affects our spiritual master. I was asked this also in 2013 in Melbourne, Australia. An Indian gentleman said something like, how does the spiritual master take the karma? And I said, well, the guru was like a parent, And I said to this gentleman, Prabhuji, he was Indian man, Indian Aussie, and he said, I said, are you a parent? And he said, yes. And how old are you? Well, they're teenagers. And as soon as he said they were teenagers, I know that very often in the West, anywhere I guess, very often teenagers become rebellious. So I said, so when you're, say your most naughty, rebellious child does something really bad, does it affect you? Oh, yes, Prabhu. So I said, I rest my case. This is what happens. The guru also gets affected when his disciples misbehave. It's a kind of, it's an analogy, parent to child and guru to disciple, but it's the same kind of principle. Yeah, so it's not just that we're hurting ourselves, but we're hurting our parents. And think how Krishna feels, that we've run away from him since time immemorial, and he stays in our heart. He never gives up on us, but we're willfully ignoring him. Prabhupada said ignorance. Ignorance means ignorance. He made it a verb. It's a willful act. So finally, when we come home, and then you see the picture, Brihad Bhagavatamrita, Gop Kumar goes home, and then Krishna's embracing him, right? Krishna he doesn't hold any grudges. We ignored him, blaspheming him, ignoring him, mocking him, since time immemorial. And he just stays with us. He doesn't give up. And then we come home, and it's not like Krishna's, yeah, well, why did you do that? No, he just He just loves us. He's all about love. All right? Okay. All right. Now it's after. Did you tell the cooks to hold the prasad? Or? Okay. So we're not going to starve. Nobody else is going to eat everything up. So we can keep going. If you have any more questions or comments or... Oh, all right, Prabhu. Wait a minute. And we're still on the air, right?
Yeah.
Okay. We didn't get
You were
cut off.
showing us the picture of prehistoric founder acharyas.
Say it again.
You were showing us the pictures of prehistoric founder acharyas like Madhvacharya and Ramanujacharya.
No, that prehistoric means the people who started. You're talking about founder acharya. That's the people who revived the sampradaya. The prehistoric is like Brahma, Lakshmi, four Kumaras, Lord Shiva, Rudra.
Those are the founder acharyas.
Those are the primeval gurus who
Okay.
directly were enlightened by the Lord Himself at the dawn of time, say, But in this Kali Yuga, those people on the bottom were the ones who revitalized and revived the sampradayas in the Kali Yuga. It's funny that Prabhupada compared to those four founder acharyas or the four sampradayas, he compared to four political parties. Prabhupada said this. And in each founder acharya, head of the parties, they're preaching a certain platform, and they're emphasizing a different aspect of the truth. Shuddha Dvaita, Vishishta Dvaita, Dvaita, Dvaita. What's the Sanskrit name for Lord Chaitanya's philosophy? Achintya Veda Veda Tattva, which actually harmonizes. This is in the Sri Krishna Chaitanya book by Sanyal. Lord Chaitanya's philosophy takes all those presentations of the truth by those four founder acharyas, and it harmonizes and completes them. Yeah, and you in the Achintya Veda Veda presentation by Mahaprabhu, you get the complete understanding of the absolute truth, the last word. And Jiva Goswami, he presents this in his Sandarbhas.
So my question was, what should be their position for us? As personally, I have not heard a lot about Madhvacharya or others. Should we read more about them or?
Well, that's right. You don't have to go any further than Prabhupada's books. I wish it. Let's see, Madhya Lila. There's Madhya Lila. There's a few places, but especially in Madhya Lila. Just if you have the database, you can just put Madhvacharya, something like that, and it'll come up as one of the hits. And it's really a long purport about Madhva. And when I went to Udupi, when I lived in Udupi, Madhva's capital, in the 90s, there's a lot of literature that you get a lot more, but Prabhupada took the essence that we need to know. And just read Prabhupada's purports. Yeah. All right, Sartak Ji. No? You're too hungry?
I actually forgot.
I can just have clarification.
You?
Thinking of the question.
Oh.
So Prabhu, you mentioned about the Adya Acharya. So is that like a translation for founder Acharya or?
Yeah, that was because it was written, Harinama Chintamani was written in Bengali, and that was the Thakur's, yeah.
So especially in that word, Sampradaya Adi Guru, Siksha Guru Pratishtita.
Yeah.
So then Sampradaya Adi Guru.
Adi Guru, the primeval preceptors who directly were enlightened by the Lord. And Shiksha Guru Pratishtita means great teachers who appear throughout the ages, who keep the Sampradaya message going, alive. But then for our Kali Yuga, then those founder acharyas, so the Adyacharya, what does it say? Is it on the slide?
I think you read it out from the.
I think I read. Oh, here it is.
Oh, sorry.
All right, Damayanti.
You want me to read it?
Yeah, read it again.
However, the Adi Acharya, or original guru of the disciplic line, is appropriately worshipped and respected as the Guru Shiromani, the topmost crown jewel of the spiritual masters. His perfect philosophical conclusions are to be followed by all in his succession. Any contrary instructions will not be accepted.
Now, that's an English translation, obviously, of what was in Harinama Chintamani. But I took the translation. It was a combination of what Jayapataka Maharaj had written in his Vyasa Puja offering, because he knows Bengali too, and what Banu Maharaj, how he translated Harinama Chintamani. And I showed it to Banu Maharaj in 2014, and I held my breath to see if he would approve it. And he said, yeah, that's fine. So, the Adyacharya. So those 4 founder acharyas of the sampradayas, and then, so are you asking about Gaudiya?
Yeah.
Yeah. So it was Srila Bhaktisiddhanta, and what did I say?
So Srila Bhaktisiddhanta is the Adyacharya?
Well, he's the Adi. I'll just read. Since the Gaudiya Mat was but an extension of the Brahma Madhva Gaudiya Sampradaya, because it's to be proper, it starts with Brahma and then through Madhva and then Lord Chaitanya. Gaudiya means Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta knew many would consider him presumptuous if he personally announced himself as the Mat's founder Acharya. Yeah, and then and also, not only did he, because people would criticize, oh, you think you're on the level of, those great acharyas, just because you started the Gaudiya Mat, blah, blah, blah. But there was another reason, and I kind of mentioned this in the paragraph below. I say, in lesson 4 of this series, we'll see why Srila Bhaktisiddhanta would later leave this world and his founder Acharya title behind. He foresaw what would soon befall his own institution. Although he founded the Gaudiya Mat, because of what happened in the 1930s, in the 20s it was booming. It was like the talk of India, the 64 Gaudiya Mats, tens of thousands of disciples. It was like, wow, it was, you say in Canada, gangbusters? Anyway, it was like hopping, it was happening. And then in the 30s, it started to decline because some of his leading preachers, as you'll see in lesson 4, they became attached. And then after Srila Bhaktisiddhanta left, they fragmented the whole thing. They didn't follow his instructions. No GBC, fighting in courts over who owned the assets. It was a disgrace. It was horrible. So he could see what was going to happen to his own institution. And at the same time, he could see who would be the one disciple who would be capable of reviving it later on. There's different pastimes amongst Prabhupada's godbrothers of people who saw this, especially, I don't know if you've ever heard of this book, Srila Prabhupada, Our Friend to All. Have you ever heard of this book? My god sister Mullapakriti, the late great Mullapakriti Devi Dasi, who was the first great lady book distributor in ISKCON. Well, not the only one, but she was one of the great ones. She went around in Vrindavan. This is after the Lilamrita was written. And she wanted to get more about Prabhupada by interviewing people who were living in Vrindavan when Prabhupada was living in Vrindavan before he came to America. Yeah. And she met a lot of people who were young then, but then were older by the time she interviewed them. Now why did I bring that up? There's, how can I tie that in? What was I saying before I started that? I had a point. Anyway, So one of the interviews that she did, which she published in the book, was from a person who was in a meeting with Srila Bhaktisiddhanta, and Srila Bhaktisiddhanta was talking to all his disciples, not all of his disciples, but I think his leading preachers. And we're saying, now we really want to expand this, not just in India. We want to go outside India. Outside India. And this person giving the interview said, and then he said, Guru Maharaj made a prediction. And the prediction was, Bhaktisiddhanta said, one of you in this room will do this. And he didn't mean the preachers that he had sent. He had called those preachers back from Europe because they didn't have much result. It was expensive to maintain those people too, Swami Ban and Bhakti Saranga and this German disciple. One of you will take this and will do wonderful preaching work. And so Bhaktisiddhanta was looking around the room, and then he was looking in the direction of this person who was giving the interview, and he thought he was looking at him. And he thought, no, it couldn't be me. I couldn't do that, But then he noticed he was looking beyond him to the person behind him. And he looked behind him, and there was Abhay Charan Aravinda. He's looking right at Abhay Charan Aravinda. Whoa! And then, of course, we have the letter, that Prabhupada wrote to his Guru Maharaj. You'll see this in lesson 4. Prabhupada wrote his Guru Maharaj, is there anything more I can do from you? In December 36, just 2 weeks before Bhaktisiddhanta disappears. And then Bhaktisiddhanta writes him back, yes. I have all faith that you can do this. You can preach the message of Lord Chaitanya in the Western, to all philosophers and religionists and the people in general. This will be good for you, it'll be good for the whole world. So you'll see that in lesson 4. Yeah. Okay. Are we done? And tomorrow, I guess we have to talk about this, but we want to start. This is coming from Maharaj, who told the Pujari, this is what we're going to do. And the Pujari said, fine, great. It's a preaching movement. We got to do this. And so, do we need to talk?
Yes.
Okay. It's a conflict with the way you're training them or something? We'll talk.
It's live right now.
Oh, okay. So you can cut it off? Okay.